Assalamu alaikum students, how are you all? Hope that you are having an amazing day. Today we have the third lecture of the series in which we are going to discuss the different theories related to the semantics, and today the topic of our discussion is theories of meaning. So we will define the theory of meaning here, that the term theory of meaning has figured in one way or another. It is basically figured out from the basic concept of theory that we have read about earlier, we have studied about earlier, that a theory is basically a set of observations and ideas, and it those ideas further leads us towards the hypothesis, and then it becomes a theory. A great number of philosophical disputes over the last half century has been there regarding the theory of meaning, either from positive side or from the negative side. Also, this term has also been used to mean a great number of different things on the basis of the different approaches, conceptions, and fields. We have defined the number of definitions of theories of meaning. Here in today's lecture, we will discuss some given theories. These are the referential theory of meaning, describes us to reference of the words and expressions related to some kind of specific meanings. Then the verification theory of meaning, which will elaborate and explain to us the different meanings in a verified manners. The use theory of meaning that we have discussed earlier in our previous lectures. The idential theory of meaning that will describes us the different ideas related to the words which comes to our mind or in our psychological states. The behavioral theory of meaning, which will elaborate the ideas of behaviorists, that what they thought about the behavioral theory of meaning. The post-structural approaches to meaning, the Freudian theory, the basically it will describes to us the segment Freud, who was most important linguist of that time, the most recognized important linguist of that time, and the perspective theory of meaning, etc. We will elaborate some important theories from these topics. So let's have a start. That under the normal circumstances, we generate the concept of theories, and we continue all the concepts that we were defining the theory of meaning, that we all know perfectly well what we say and what we intend to mean, that what the particular type of sentence and expression was about, and what were the hidden meanings of that sentence or expression. As we utter a word or a sentence, that certain kinds of the marks and the noises have the meanings. So all the marks and noises have their own meanings, and meanings may differ from person to person, from society to society, from culture to culture, and from individual to individual. We all know about that. That we human beings grasp those meanings without even thinking about it. That sometimes we don't think about the meanings, that it has the particular or well established meanings. The philosophical concern is to determine the explicit and coherent account of this ability, that some of the people do know about that, what was the philosophical approach behind that expression or word. So a philosophical theory of meaning should explain what it is for a string of marks, that what was the reason these words have been uttered, what was the reason behind that utterance. Noises to be meaningful, all the noises and voices should be meaningful. The voice that is has been uttered from our vocal cords, from our mouth, by using our tongue, they should be meaningful one. More particularly, what it is in the virtue of which the string has the distinctive meaning it does. Either it elaborates some kind of special meaning or it doesn't elaborate some kind of special meaning. So all these things are dealt in the theory of philosophical theory of meaning. So the theory should also explain, a theory explains to us that how it is possible for human beings to produce utterances, that why there is a dire need to produce the utterances. All of us knows that the society demands to us that we should speak to deliver our viewpoint. So that's why the theory of meaning explains to us that why the utterance was used for a certain purpose. It also explains to us to understand the meaningful utterances and to do that so effortlessly. For practical purpose, some writers focus on the most salient ones and classify these theories under the following headings. So these are the three major theories. You can see it on your screen. The referential theory of meanings, the ideational theory of meaning, and the behavioral theory of meaning. However, besides these three, other additional classification may go like this: the description theory, we have discussed about it in lecture number 2. The proposition theory, the use theories was discussed in the lecture number 2. The psychological theories are the Grice program, the verificationist viewpoint about the theories of the meaning, truth condition theories, the Davidson program, the theory of metaphors, in which the metaphors are used. So here we discuss the referential theory of meaning. As you can see that the word reference gives the meaning of to correlation with something, to relate or to intermingle or to overlap the meaning of the word. This common sense theory is that expressions have the meanings because they stand for things. All the expressions stand for the things, one thing or the another thing. They mean what they stand for. We should know about that, what the particular meaning were about. A theory that is based on the assumptions that language is used to talk about things outside the language. The meaning of the word is the object it denotes. That every denotion is about a certain object, and every meaning of the word implies or gives us the vision of a particular object. The meaning of the sentence is the proportion it expresses. What the proposition was expressed. What was the proposition? What was the basic purpose or the proper purpose of that thing? Every meaningful expression has the meaning because there is something that it refers to. It designates, sometimes it signifies. You have discussed the relation between the signifier and signified. It denotes some particular words. Always there is a denotation of the particular words. So there are the different correlated ideas in the referential theory that gives us the reference. One word is always referential for the other word. One expression gives us the reference of the other expression. One thing leads us towards the other thing. It is a symbol that stands for something other than itself. This theory is also called the denotative theory of meanings because it denotes the things according to its meaning. It denotes the words and expressions that what was the context behind it, what was the contextual parameters behind that thing. So the construal of the theory of reference is traceable from Gottlob Frege from 1848 to 1925 AD. He attempts to formulate a logic sufficient for the formalization of mathematical inferences. He was basically uh, employ the different type of the formalization of the mathematical inferences. For that purpose he used different type of the things or the different types of the references. Frege is considered to be one of the founders of the modern logic. Either that logic may be correct, having the inductive or deductive method, or it may be false. There should be an intentional fallacy, or there should be some kind of fallacy which has been elaborated by using the logic. So logic is a key to find out the truth. There is always a certain logic behind the truth. He made the major contributions to the foundations of the mathematics, and as you know that the mathematics is the mother of all sciences, so it always based on the true values, the truth tables, the truth values of the expressions. So here in meaning theories we also use the truth values to eject out the meanings. He is generally considered to be the father of analytic philosophy. So analytical philosophy was basically invented by Frege. Frege has a number of expressions that he has used in his own writings. Writings on the philosophy of language and mathematics was his main interest, and Frege and Bertrand Russell argued powerfully that definite descriptions do not mean what they mean in virtue of denoting what they denote. That one is the purpose of denotation of something, and the other is the purpose or the virtue of denoting what they denote. That meaning of meaning, the reference of references, the referrals of the referrals. Rather, he contended a sentence containing a definite description, such as, the woman who lives there is a biochemist. Here we are going to analyze an example that it is a simple sentence that the woman who lives there is a biochemist. For example, it is a simple for me, or it might be complex for me, or compound complex for me. It can be any sentence, but here we are going to analyze the sentence that the woman who lives there is a biochemist. So let us have some analysis about this sentence. It has subject predicate form only superficially and is really logically a bunch of generalizations. It is equivalent to at least one woman lives there, and at most one woman lives there, and whoever lives there is a biochemist. So that is a proper meaning of above given sentence, that at least one woman and at most one woman who lives there, whoever lives there is a biochemist. Either she is a woman or she is not a woman. So this referential theory of meaning is attractively simple. It gives us the simple idea. It is not figurative as we have discussed the previous theories. It just gives the theory of attractive simplicities and the simplification. Sorry for that. But it has some problems. A variety of objections have been raised. There are some objections on this theory. The first problem or the first objection on this theory is that not every word refers to an actual thing. That every word isn't denoting an actual thing. There might be another word, there might be another thing which refers to that certain type of words. First, some words don't refer to anything that exists. It might be inexistent, or it might not be in existence. So here comes another example. Pegasus does not denote anything real because there is no winged horse after all. The Pegasus is basically denoting here the winged horse. Also consider the sentences, I saw nobody, But to what does nobody refers? Who is nobody here? Consider the sentence Ralph is a fat. What does fat denote here? Being fat is a physical state and physical condition of our body. But perhaps it denotes something abstract like the property of being fat, or as Plato would have called it, the fat itself. So, according to views of Plato, the fat itself is a true description of the sentence Ralph is fat, according to his mode of meanings. So perhaps when we express Ralph is fat, we mean that Ralph exemplifies the property of being fat. On this view, is fat means something like has fatness, something that is some type of bulky, chubby. So maybe what we are doing is joining together the name of person like Ralph with the name of the property fat by using is. So that is the basic purpose of our that sentence or expression, that we are going to join the two things by having the reference to each other with the reference of each other, and we use the word is. But then what does is stand for? That is also a question which is begging an answer here. Perhaps it stands for the relation of having. So the sentence really means something like Ralph bears the having relation to fatness, that Ralph refers to the fatness and the fatness refers to the Ralph. Hope that you have understand this point. Now it looks we need to explain what bears refers to, because we are discussing the referential theory. So here we are analyzing the different type of the references available here, and this could go on into infinity, and we would never be able to work out the referential meaning of the sentences. Here we can seem to be noun that do not name the individual things, like there are some noun which are not individual way in individual, they are called collective nouns. Some are the countable noun, some are the not the countable noun, or kinds of things, or even the abstract things like the property of being fat. That what was the property of being fat? That Ralph and fatness have a linkage with each other. Ralph is fat, and fatness basically directly refers towards the Ralph. Think of the words like sake or behalf. Both have the almost same meanings. Both are the synonyms of the each other. One might do something on another's behalf, but this behalf doesn't seem to be a thing or even an abstract object. It may be on the behalf of some other people, or for the sake of the people. Both have the same meaning, but these nouns are meaningful, but they do not seem to get their meaning by referring to anything at all. If we refer them to anything, then we might not get the same meaning as the both singular words has the same meaning, like sake and behalf, almost same meaning. But if we use them in the expressions, if we use them in the sentences, they might not have the same meaning at all. If we consider the words other than nouns, like they often fail to refer to anything at all, like very, of, yes, and alas. So these are some kind of words which don't have any reference to each and everything. They will not provide us any reference. These words don't refer to anything, and yet they are meaningful. What is the problem true here? Referential theory treats a sentence as a list of names for things to which the word refers, but a list of names says nothing Bo Jill Washington Phyllis has nothing in meaning. So how could we get the meanings from a list of words that refers to things? There must be something else going on too. So referential theory fails here on the problem number 2, that when there is a list of meaning, the references are not there. That's why the meaning are not there. If the references are at its lowest value, then it means that meaning will be at its lower value. There will be zero meaning about that thing. And what is the problem 3? There is more to meaning than the references. That we need the more meaning and we don't need the more references. We are only going to deal with the meaning. The references will not describe us the proper meanings. Some words can refer to the same thing but not share to same thing. Some words are like the same thing, but the reference is not when it is used in the expression is not exactly same. For example, the president and Barack Obama, etc. both are correct for America, for United States of America. Consider the following sentences now for the other examples. Barack Obama is the 44th president of United States. But if we say in second sentence that John McCain is the 44th president of the United States, then you will deliberately say that the first one is correct, one is true, and the second is false. Obviously, this difference in the truth value is traceable to some difference between the expression Barack Obama and John McCain. So here the reference has been changed. The first reference is from Barack Obama and the second one is from John McCain. Here the Barack Obama says the true sense and John McCain's is at the false reference. What about these expressions explains the difference in truth value between these sentences? If the referential theory of meaning is false, which theory is true? That is also an important question. So let's have see. There are other theories of meaning that surpass the referential theory, though they have their own problems. So you can say that there is always a problem with the other theories because the theory is basically begging some kind of experimental evidences here. Ideatial theories, which describe some type of ideas about the words that I don't know the meaning exactly, but I have an idea in my mind that it could be this or it could be that. Either it is it, either it is that one. He seems John Locke from 1632 to 1704 AD. He seems to have held the meaning that he has been at his topmost point to describe the meanings in his own thoughts. The linguistic expressions are ideas in our mind. What we read, what we listen, what we utter, what we speak, what we have in any form of communication, they have some kind of expressional ideas in our mind. That while thinking about something, while having an ideology in our mind, we speak. When we are thinking some kind of speeches in our mind, we make an idea in our psychological perspectives or in our mind. That gives us the idea of meaning that either we should say it or not. Locke's theory of mind is often cited as the origin of modern conception of identity and the self. So, figuring prominently in the work of the later philosophers such as Hume, Rousseau, and Kant, etc., Locke was the first to define the self through a continuity of the consciousness, that the consciousness does know about that which we are going to talk about is always have an idea in our mind, that our mind has the same ideas which our tongue is going to express. He postulated that the mind was a blank slate or tabula rasa. Tabula rasa is basically Latin word which means that a thing without any marks on it or a blank sheet. He maintained that we are born without innate ideas, but when the ideas generated in our mind, then we express those ideas. If the ideas are positive in our mind, our utterances will be positive one, and if the ideas are negative in our mind, then our utterance will also be a negative one. That knowledge is instead determined only by the experience. That knowledge is basically a name, other name of experience. And knowledge comes from experiences of life and other things. It derived from the sense perception, that what our five senses percept from our surroundings. Which the things are perceived from our surroundings becomes our ideas, and then we have speech about those ideas. Marks or noises be the meaningful is for the string of express significantly correspond to a content bearing mental state that the speaker is in. When a speaker is speaking, it means that he is ever changing and continuous ideas having in his own mind or her own mind, and he is delivering those ideas through utterances, or she is delivering those ideas through those utterances. So an idea, an image, or perhaps a thought or a belief which comes to our mind, always a reason, that is always a reason to speak different type of expressions, and it is always through the experiences. If a string is meaningful in that it expresses an idea, one may then say that for two expressions to be synonymous, it is for them to express the same idea. That if two expressions have the same words, if two expressions has the same thoughts, if two expressions has the same logic, if two expressions has the same set structure of the sentences, it means they have the same meaning. If the ideas are same, it means that the meaning are same. If the ideas are connected to each other, the meaning are connected to each other. For an expression to be ambiguous is for there to be more than one idea that it could express, so on. So different ideas generate different expressions, and the same ideas generate the same expressions. And regarding the phenomena of merely the verbal disagreement, that the ideational theorist may say it is not that one party has one thought and the other has the different. It might be possible that if the ideas are different, the utterances are different. It all is basing upon the mindset of the speaker. On the other hand, the conflicting thought, they both have the same thought. If the thoughts are conflicting, the idea will differ. If the thoughts are same, the idea will be same. If the idea differs, the speech will be differ. And if the idea is the same, then the speech will also be same from both of the speakers, but are confusingly putting it in the different words that sounds incompatible. Here on the ideology of different speeches or the theory of ideas, we have the objection number one. If an ideational theory is to be precise enough to test, it must specify what sort of the mental entity and idea it is. That ideational theory is failed here to express the thoughts of the people and the particular type of the ideas which are coming into the mind of people. Every person couldn't read the mind of the other person. So same is the case with ideational theory, that ideas couldn't be explained sometime. So that is the first objection here. And then it will run into the trouble. mental images will not do at all. That sometime it is undescribable to express our mental thoughts. Some words are coming to our mind, but we are not able to express those expressions or those thoughts in our sentences. As a matter of fact, for images are more detailed than the meaning. That which imaginary thoughts are in our mind are basically totally different from the facts sometimes, or they also resemble with the that is the basic and major objection on the ideational theory. A whole thought might do as the meaning of a complete sentence. That how a whole thought could be expressed in a complete sentence. There should be number of sentences to express those thoughts or those ideas which are coming in the mind of an individual, but not every sentence expresses anyone's actual thought. That what the actual thought is in the mind of any person or any speaker, that may be actual, it might be fake. If the thought is meant in the more abstract sense as it was by Frege, and then we are talking about a very different sort of theory. It means that if the thoughts are not clear, they are abstract one, then it means that the words uttered by a speaker, the sentence uttered by a speaker should also having vague thoughts, vague expressions, the abstract senses, the ununderstandable expression. These are some kind of objection. The second objection here is that, as with the referential theory, there are just too many words that have no particular mental images or contents associated with them. So, what about those contents? What about those ideas which are not associated with each other? So, as with the referential theory, there are just too many words that have the particular mental images or contents associated with them, is and of etc. are some kind of the expressions which comes to our mind, but they don't have a comprehensive elaboration or explanation or the comprehensive meaning in them. These are the vague thoughts. These are not the complete thoughts. They are the abstract thoughts. So indeed, if the images are what are on offer, there are certainly the words that psychologically could not have images associated with them. For example, Shiligan or nonentity. It means that nonentity or Shiligan are the words which comes to our mind, but we cannot make an idea about those words, that either they are properly in description for a sentence or they are properly not in description for a sentence. So that is the objection number 2 for ideational theory. The objection number 3 here in the ideational theory is that meaning is a public intersubjective social phenomena. That meaning always deal with the social parameters, intersubjective parameters, and public parameters. So an English word has the meaning it does for the entire community of the English speakers, even if some members of that community happen not to understand that word. For example, if we speak the English with a person of Pakistan who has not attended the single class in the school, a single class of English in the school, that how he will understand our ideas? He wouldn't be able to understand our ideas. Instead, he will nod or he will shake his head that he is going to be understand that idea or not. So it means that the ideas, images, and feeling in the mind are not intersubjective in that way. They are subjective, held only in the mind of the individual person, and they differ from person to person depending on one's total mental state and background. That what is the mental state of that person? Either he is educated, either he is not educated. If he is educated in English grammar, then he will understand the meaning of our words which we are going to utter before him in English sentences. But if he don't have any idea of English language, then how he will be able to understand our ideas? That is the third objection about the ideatial theory. Therefore, meaning are not ideas in the mind. Similarly, the objection 4, there are meaningful sentences that do not express any actual idea or thought or the mental state. You will surprise to read that. So there are sentences that are or would be perfectly meaningful, but whose contents have never been thought by anyone or even occurred to anyone. For example, we read a newspaper. The news which is not concerned to us is that, in my example, you can say that that is a sports. So if a person don't have any interest in sport, how he is going to act that idea to understand that idea? That a person has no interest in Wimbledon Open tennis tournament, and we are going to describe him some kind of news about the Wimbledon Open tennis tournament, it means that he will not get it at all, that what was the rate of the sets, what was the standing of the players, or who was the top seeded player in that tournament. So thus there are the meaningful sentences in our news, but that do not correspond to any actual mental entities, a particular person who don't have any interest in tennis tournament. So the next one is the behavioral theory of meaning. That the behavioral theory rejects any account of the mental. It describes the behavior of individuals. And behavior is basically a changing mood from time to time, from person to person, that requires positing inner and publicly inaccessible item, and claims that the overt behavior constructed in the terms of a stimulus response, the model provides the basis for the understanding mental life. And by applying this approach to analyze the concept of meaning, some philosophers suggest that the meaning of an utterance is response it evokes in the audience in the particular context. So if the behavior is good, the utterance is good, but if behavior is bad, or the emotional one behavior, the utterance will be bad or the emotional. So the utterance will follow the behavior. If the behavior is deliberately good with the people, then the utterance of the speech will be good. The forerunner of this tendency was John B. Watson, and the linguist L. Bloomfield put forward a simple version of such a theory that claims that meaning can be identified with regularly evoked behavioral responses, that if the behavioral response is better, then the meaning will be better understood. But if the behavior is not good, then the meaning will not be understood good. Charles Morris, who assumed that every meaningful expression is a sign for something, elaborated a more sophisticated version of the theory based on the dispositions of the response rather than the actual overt responses. So it all depends upon the responses, what kind of response that was. Although the behavioral theory of meaning claims to overcome the vagueness of ideas in the mentalistic thought or the mentalist view, it seems almost as problematic as the theory it opposes. So it is always problematic to understand the behavior of the people, that in which behavior that individual is going to deal us. But according to this behavioristic thought and behavioristic theory, that there is a plethora of different stimuli that elicit the same word. What is the stimuli here? Stimuli means any external or internal agent. Basically here in our example, an external agent which is going to affect a particular mode of communication. And the number of different responses evoked by the word is equally high. Take, for example, a word like jazz. You are all familiar with this word. In some situations, a person might utter the word to indicate they would like to hear some jazz tunes or some jazz internet package or some jazz cash mobile account. You will definitely understand the situations that about what situation we are going to talk about. In other situations, they might utter that the word to approve or to disapprove of the music they are listening to at that moment. Bloomfield himself acknowledged that the statement of meanings is therefore the weak point or the behavioral language study and will remain so until human knowledge advances very far beyond its present state. So, according to Bloomfield, that the behavior is a main and major part of our utterance and our speech. What we are going to speak, what is the speech about, is always depend upon our behavior. It means that it again fulfill our statement that if the behavior is good, it means that the speaking of that person and meaning of that person was good. Gaussian semantics, we have dealt with it already in previous lectures, and you can have concept from lecture number 1 and lecture number 2, and possible word semantics we also have discussed it in previous lecture. From you can get some concept of this theory from lecture number 1 and lecture number 2 of the series of this session. So that's the end of today's session. Hope that you have got all the concepts and you have understand them well. Having a firm and the resolute mindset about understanding the different semantic theories. If you can ask some kind of question, if you are going to ask some kind of question, kindly ask it in comment box, and I will be happy to give you answer of those questions. But if some points are not understandable for you, you can ask me or you can confirm them from these references. Also, you can ask me in comments box below. So hopefully you will have an amazing day ahead. So that's it from my lecture. It's goodbye from me.